Welcome back to the Sibling Group Chat. I'm Owen.
And I'm Cassidy.
And today we are back at it with the Odyssey review, episode 26, The Price of Freedom.
Yes, this is the 28th episode of Odyssey, and it originally aired on May 28th, 1988. However, it is on album 6, Mission Accomplished. So we've had a few other episodes like this that were put on way later albums. We don't really know why, but it works here. So we won't question that too much. But in this episode, a teacher maligns 12-year-old Kirk McGinty's war hero father and the war he fought in. Kirk's mother and Wit step in to set both of them straight, and our themes are American history, God's control, patriotism, and the price of freedom.
Maligns is an awfully strong word there.
I know. But, I mean, it is pretty harsh.
It is. But you also gotta, you partially have to understand the teacher's point of view too, because he had some valid reasons for his point of view.
He did. And had he known that Kirk's father
was
a part of the war, I'm sure he wouldn't have spoken to him that way, but that doesn't necessarily excuse.
But anyway, before we get into the actual episode, you said Chris is really stuck on unrelated baseball.
I said the same thing. I was like, and Chris is still talking about baseball.
Back-to-back episodes where Chris is talking about baseball that has absolutely nothing to do with the episode.
Back-to-back for us recording-wise. A Change of Heart actually airs in between, but yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently baseball is one of her hobbies.
Baseball is her hobby, and we find out Kirk McGinty's hobby. She says war. I don't know if you want to say studying war, playing war. Kind of both, I guess.
Yeah.
Regardless, we enter with Kirk daydreaming in history class about being a captain in war, and his teacher calls his name out of his daydream.
Mm-hmm. We got to talk about this daydream, though. Because, well, first of all, the soldiers in his daydream, I was pretty sure, and I confirmed because I looked in the guide, are voiced by Paul McCusker and Bob Luttrell, who was a creator, writer, and sound producer, respectively. And I don't know if this line has always struck you as funny, but the one line to me that I've always thought was funny in this is, he's motioning us to come forward.
I don't think it's that badly pronounced.
It kind of is. And so I had noted that because I thought it was always funny, but then when I was done listening, I was checking the Adventures in Odyssey guide to see what I had to say about this episode. And Bob Luttrell, there's a note in there, he says that he gets made fun of for how he said that line all the time.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I can think it's funny because the Odyssey people think it's funny.
Okay. So yeah, there's that. And then once his teacher is calling his name he's in history class. He's telling him that his report he did on the Vietnam War was very interesting, but that most of his facts were wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this teacher, we get going, and obviously this teacher, he believes that the U.S. should not have been involved in Vietnam. Kirk would disagree with that. But you would think as a teacher, if Kirk was using objective information, he couldn't have faulted him for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we don't know what Kirk wrote, but I don't know. I feel like his teacher was a little bit harsh when they're coming from different opinions.
And obviously we were both too young to have any idea of the opinions that went around about the Vietnam War at the time. But I would say that it would make sense for Kirk to have maybe an overly positive view of it, and a lot of people that had an overly negative view of it.
Yeah, I would agree. So, again, we don't know the contents of his paper, but I guess we're going to have to assume that he let his opinions help him write his paper, whereas his teacher let his opinions help him grade the paper.
Right. Then so after class, he goes to talk to his teacher. His teacher's name is Mr. Altman. And he asks him if he thinks that all those soldiers that went to Vietnam died for nothing, and Mr. Altman says he does think that they did. And he also gave him a book to read, calling Vietnam the True Story or something, or
the Real Story, something like that. I don't know if it's a real book or not, but
yeah. But on the way home, Kirk is reading the book as he's walking home, and then his friends ambush him. They say they're practicing guerrilla warfare. I think what they're really doing is they're finding Kirk and also half practicing for they have a battle reenactment they're going to do at the Memorial Day picnic.
Yeah, which we find out at the picnic, they were reenacting the Battle of Gettysburg, so I don't know why they were practicing guerrilla warfare.
Well, I mean, the Confederates used some guerrilla warfare. Maybe not at
I
Gettysburg.
suppose. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we ever get names for his friends. I think one of them he maybe calls Theo or something. But one of his friends is voiced by the kid who later voices Oscar, so, you know.
Yeah, I think Jimmy might have been in there too.
Maybe.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
For some reason, I thought he was in there too, but maybe not. Yeah, basically, Kirk was upset, told his friends to knock it off. One of his friends asked him if he's upset because he found out his dad wasn't the big hero he thought he was, which just that makes Kirk more angry, which almost understandably so.
Hmm.
And he starts pushing him, and then he runs off, presumably going home. He dropped his book at some point, didn't pick it back up. No, throughout the course of that, he also tells his friends that he's not going to participate in their battle reenactment. Which I just have to ask. It seems like they're on a long weekend from school and they're going to be coming back to school. How much more school could you possibly have left by Memorial Day?
Yeah, I don't know. Some schools do go into June, so I'm guessing that's the case here. But yeah, it was a bit odd for me too.
I mean, I graduated Memorial Day weekend. We'd been done for a week and a half.
Yeah, I mean, and for South Dakota, Memorial Day is pretty late to be finishing school. Or I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, we
it's like
finished school
the
before that,
very
but
end of when schools finish in South Dakota.
yeah,
I mean, I think there was at least one school I know of that had a graduation like 2 weeks before we did.
yeah, yeah. So it's pretty unusual for here, but I know it's not unheard of schools that
Yeah.
go more Labor Day to Memorial Day. So
Anyway, the boys go to Wits End and they tell Mr. Whitaker what had happened about Mr. Altman not liking Kirk's paper and him presumably giving him the book. And so Mr. Whitaker says that he thinks he might go talk to Mr. Altman. It gives the impression that he's going to do like immediately. Find out later. I think he probably does it the next day.
I didn't feel like he did it immediately. I thought maybe he did it like when he left Wits End for that day.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Yeah, that could be, I suppose.
Hmm.
But then after that short snippet, we're back with Kirk. He's in his room. I think he didn't eat anything for supper, so his mom was bringing him some supper. But he said he's not hungry. So his mom was trying to like comfort him, like apologizing for thinking that she could keep him away from people's negative opinions about the Vietnam War. And then he asked her to tell him the story of the last time she saw his father again. Apparently, she must tell him the story fairly regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he tells him the story, and the main key part of it, I would say, is that there's in the story his father was helping a Vietnamese mother and her baby,
Hmm.
and he held the baby, and his mom thinks that it was because he somehow knew that she was pregnant with Kirk, even though she hadn't told him yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
also that shows like his mom was in Vietnam as well. Both his parents were in Vietnam, and then she left. And, yeah.
yeah. But then Kirk fell asleep while his mom was telling him the story. And so he has a dream that night. It combines his daydreaming tendencies, the story his mother had just been telling him, along with the book that Mr. Altman had just given him. And his
Yeah.
father was also in the dream.
Hmm.
But I think Mr. Altman isn't in his dream, but the voice of Mr. Altman narrates what he had read in the book. Or, I mean, I don't know if he was. You can't see what exactly he was dreaming, but they used the voice of Mr. Altman.
Hmm.
Who is that?
Phil Lawler.
Yeah, Phil Lawler.
Yeah.
But I just think I don't know if it was a great idea to use Mr. Altman's voice there. Like I get the idea because he was the one who kind of gave him the book and stuff, but it seems like maybe not a great idea to have a teacher's voice used that way. Maybe I mean that's just me.
Harshly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can catch that point, but also even if the story isn't setting Mr. Altman to be the bad guy, but at this point in Kirk's head, Mr. Altman is the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of see where in his mind he has Mr. Altman, who gave him this book, saying these things, reading from this book.
Right. Yeah. But so it was either like I think it's maybe that night around the same time, maybe even a little earlier than where Kirk was at. But Whit had gone to talk to Mr. Altman, and he's talking to Mr. Altman. He finds out that Mr. Altman didn't know that Kirk's father had died in Vietnam, and so Mr. Whitaker's telling him about how in Odyssey they still respect people who were veterans or who died in patriotism and all that stuff. But then Whit finds out what he didn't know is that Mr. Altman's brother had died in Vietnam, and that's what really gave Mr. Altman the negative view of both the war and like people who kind of patriotism of military endeavors in general.
Yeah, and I would say, or I would assume that most likely that Mr. Altman didn't agree with the U.S. being involved in Vietnam even before his brother died, or he most likely would have been there himself.
Probably, yeah.
But it probably strengthened his opinions against it when his brother was killed.
Right. So yeah, and then there's the Memorial Day celebration. So I suppose the next Monday, it's probably a day or two in between, I would guess.
Yeah, because Whit had told Connie when they were at Whit's End that the picnic was on Memorial Day itself.
Yeah. On Memorial Day, they're unveiling a statue that's like a veterans memorial.
Yeah, I found it a little interesting. In this episode, they call it the Veterans Monument. They call it that multiple times. But later in Odyssey, I feel like they end up calling it the War Memorial. Like, they just kind of shift what they call it.
Maybe. I also kind of wonder, why didn't they make this episode set to Veterans Day? Like, was it released near Memorial Day?
Yeah, it's the end of May. May 28th. Yeah, May 28th. So.
The whole connotation of everything other than the fact that they say Memorial Day has always made me think this episode feels like a beginning of the school year episode, not an end of the school year.
Yeah, I would agree too. I was even noting that because early in the episode, he says they have a 3-day weekend before they say it's Memorial Day. So at first I was like, what is this 3-day weekend? And then you find out that it's Memorial Day. So,
because I mean, it makes sense.
I think it kind of fits with both, but
yeah, it would. But so apparently the McGinty's like Kirk and his mother were involved in putting this memorial idea together and getting it done. Mr. Barkley's voice asks them to say a few words.
Oh, it is, isn't it? I didn't place that.
It's an undisclosed person, but it's...
Yeah, I just said the announcer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is Chuck Bolte, now that I think about it.
Chuck Bolte's voice asks him to say a few words. Kirk doesn't want to say anything because he's been, presumably the entire weekend, he's been questioning if everything that he thought about his father and war and patriotism and glory was wrong, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But his mother reads a letter from Kirk's father. I don't know, did she say the last letter or one of the last letters?
I think she says one of the last letters.
Yeah. But it's a really... it acknowledges that there were bad things that happened in Vietnam while also really hammering home the point of the episode about that those who paid the ultimate price deserved to be respected, and basically that, yeah.
Yeah. He says specifically in that letter that if he has ever had a son, that's how he would want his son to remember him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out after they unveil the monument that Kirk's mom had never read him this letter before.
Right. And she said that she had never read it to him because she had never had the need to until then. Mm-hmm. But then Mr. Altman comes and he apologizes to Kirk, saying he shouldn't have said the things that he said. And you got to think it's a combination of his talk with Mr. Whitaker, plus he was obviously there, so he probably heard the letter that his mom read. Apologizing Partially because I think he's starting to somewhat realize that his negative view is more influenced by his brother dying than maybe fact as well, but also
Yeah.
just because he didn't want to ruin Kirk's image of his father because of his own ideas.
Yeah.
But then Kirk and his mother leave to go look at the memorial, and Mr. Altman stays to talk to Whit and says that he was looking at the memorial and two names stuck out to him. The first was Eric Altman, which is his brother's name. And he says he doesn't know how that got out in there since his brother never lived in Odyssey, but if he could pass along a message to whoever put it on there, he would appreciate it very much, like, thank you. And so Whit says he'll see that it gets passed along. We all know it was Mr. Whitaker who got that done, but
Yeah, and I have to wonder, just logistically, I always assumed this was like a stone monument with like names engraved in it, kind of a thing. How did they get that done over the weekend?
I mean, it wouldn't be that hard, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess it was just like a last minute. If somebody in Odyssey made the monument, I don't know, like I don't know who does those things. I don't know if like they had to call up the person. You would think that they already had it in place before, but maybe not. I don't know. What do I know? But
But then the second name that
logistically,
stuck out to Mr. Altman was Jerry Whitaker, who is Mr. Whitaker's son. Um, and so him and Mr. Whitaker basically talk a little bit how it never gets easier. But Whit said that's what makes days like Memorial Day special, is because you remember those people.
yeah,
That's about the episode.
yeah. Chris kind of wraps it up with discussing that obviously there's going to be problems in any war of knowing who's on the right side, more so with wars like Vietnam than maybe some others, but that we ultimately have to trust God is in control in these times. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you have any final thoughts on thoughts on the episode?
So pretty straightforward. It's a good episode.
Yeah, I think for a long time this episode was my only really context of the Vietnam War. I feel like you learn about it in school, but also because it's closer to modern history, it's one of those things I don't think you always get to when you get into the end of the year if you didn't get that far. Um, so I was thinking back on it, I was like, I feel like for a long time this episode was about all I knew about people's thoughts of the Vietnam War. It's definitely, I feel like now maybe not as, or maybe a little more overlooked, but when this episode came out, like 12 years after the war had ended, it would still be very much fresh in people's minds. And
It
here
would be
in this
very
episode,
possible to have a kid whose father had died or a teacher whose brother had died.
yeah, like in this
Theoretically very
episode,
relatable.
yeah, in this episode, there's at least 3 people who had family members die in Vietnam, and at the time that this aired, that was very common as well. So I think it's a good episode, and it faces it well without them really saying one way or another, like leading you as an audience to believe one way or the other about Vietnam, but to
And you know
respect.
what I really think is their main purpose, and I think is the correct thing to think, is regardless of if you think the U.S. should have been involved in Vietnam, we should still honor the military who fought there.
Correct. Yeah. So, yeah, good episode, I think. Next week's episode is another jump to a later album, is Rumor Has It, which aired in album number 3. So, again, with these weird jumps, it feels weird when you're used to listening in album order, but it doesn't mess up what we know of the Odyssey timeline. Because these are primarily
just as much or more sense in some cases.
Yeah, because so far they've been primarily one-time character episodes. Rumor has it is not, but they'll still fit.
Yeah.
Actually, rumor has it will be our first entrance of Jack and Lucy, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. So, looking forward to next week.
Looks like that about wraps it up. We thank you for watching and or listening. Follow and subscribe wherever you get our podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we will see you next time.
Bye.